Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so today we have two standards that we're going to focus on, okay? So pay attention here. The first standard states ELA CCRI 1 states cite several pieces of textual evidence to support analysis of what the text says explicitly, as well as inferences drawn from the text. So there are some key items that we need to look at. Cite, textual evidence, explicitly. We see the word inferences, but we're going to focus on the derivation of that word, which is infer. Also, there's another standard that we're going to look at. ELA CC 7RI 2 states determine two or more central ideas in a text and analyze their development over the course of a text. Provide an objective summary of the text. So the key terms that we're looking at would be determine, central ideas, analyze. But today we're going to focus on the first part of that standard would be determining central ideas. And then as we progress along, we'll get that information to write an objective summary. But today we're just gathering information. Okay? So you're saying to yourself, Ms. Thompson, why is this important to me? Well, when you read text, is it important to understand that as you get ready to summarize, you need to make sure that it's free of editorial bias. So you're saying, what is editorial bias? Well, editorial bias means that it's free from your own opinion. You do not write how you feel about a particular topic. You cite evidence directly from the text. So why is it important? When we write summaries, it comes from details and examples from the text. And it is free of editorial bias, means my own opinion. Good so far? Okay. So when I think about what am I going to learn today? What information am I learning today? I want you to be able to walk away and say this. I can determine the central idea, main idea, of a text by identifying and analyzing key topics and supporting details. So let's get ready to read that together. So we have a firm understanding of what we're learning today. This is our learning target for today. Ready? And it's on your orange sheet if you cannot see it on the screen. On your orange sheet, on your note sheet, is on there for you. Okay? Learning target on my three. 1, 2, 3, and read.
I can determine the central idea, main idea of a text by identifying and analyzing key topics and supporting details.
Okay, so now, before we even get to the part of looking for the information, we need to have an understanding of key terms and key vocabulary. Since we're already on our note sheet, go ahead and put your finger on standards. We just talked about the standard. We also talked about the learning target. Put your finger on learning target. Now we're going to talk about key vocabulary. So let's get ready to take notes. So you can pick up your writing utensil. And I want you to follow along with me. Because before we begin, we have to have an understanding of key vocabulary. So let's look at our first term, determine. So I want you to write to find. Determine means to find. Determine, if you think about the word to find, it also means to look for. I had to determine what I was going to put on this morning to come to work. So it means I had to go into the closet and find what I was looking for. What I was going to wear to work. Then we look at the second term, analyze. Now I've seen this particular word in classes like science, math, and even social studies. That's right, I heard someone say even social studies. And analyze means to break down into parts. So go ahead and write that down. To break down into parts. Let's talk about how it looks in science. You analyze the data from a science experiment or a lab that you complete to formulate a conclusion, right? In math, when I see a word problem, I have to look at those terms and break the terms down to figure out the operation, right? Well, let's talk about how it looks in literacy in your language arts class. To analyze in language arts means I look at everything. When I look at a text, I look at the title. I look at the byline. I look at the illustration. But more importantly, I read the caption underneath because it could give me some key information. I look at the paragraphs. I analyze the paragraphs by breaking the paragraph down and making marginal notes to tell me what it's about. So that's how it looks in language arts. Let's talk about cite. You've seen this term before. Cite means to mention in support of. Go ahead and write it down. To mention in support of. I'm going to come back to that term because I'm going to use it when I give you a definition of another term. Infer. Remember, we saw the word emphasis. Infer means to conclude or judge from evidence. I want you to box out from evidence. That's so important. When a reader infers, they're taking pieces or clues from the text to make a decision. Does it make sense? So I'll say if the author states this, this, and this, he must mean something. I'm just not saying, I'm not making up anything. I'm getting it from clues from the text. And I'm going to come back to this term in just a second as well. So we have determine. I want you to repeat the words after me. Determine.
Determine.
Analyze.
Analyze.
Cite.
Cite.
Infer.
Infer.
Okay, so let's move to our next set of terms. Central idea. We've known that word and we've heard it in the past as main idea. Okay? So it is the main focus of the text. One question I ask myself a lot of when I'm trying to find a central idea or main idea of the text, what is this text about? Then I have the term supporting detail. Evidence that upholds the central idea. It validates the central idea. It supports the central idea. So when I think of evidence, it could be facts. It could be statements. And it could be examples. Now these two items are very important, the next two. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to write them down. Explicit and implicit. When you have written them, put down your pencil so I know, because this is the key to finding and locating supporting details. I know you're ready when your pencil is down. One ready. Two. Pencil down. Don't want you to jump ahead to extraneous yet. I want you to stay with me. Okay? Looks like majority of you are ready. When I think about supporting details, there are two types. Explicit and implicit. Now pay attention to me. Explicit means it is evidence, fact statements, and examples that is directly stated in the text. So I want you to box out directly stated and put your pencil back down. So when I think about explicit details, I can take my finger and go directly to the text to prove what I am saying. Where implicit is evidence that is not directly stated. I want to put a box around that. Not directly stated. Which means this, pay attention. If it's implicit details, that means that I have to infer about the information. That means it's evidence that is not directly stated, is implied. I can draw a conclusion to derive to an answer. Almost like inferring. I can take bits and pieces to make a conclusion about something. Okay, everybody with me? Okay. So now let's pick up our pencil and let's talk about extraneous information. Extraneous. What word do I see there? Extra. It's information that does not fully support the central idea. That means it's information that is good to hear and to read, but it somewhat supports it. It does not fully support what that section or what that text is about. All right, so let's get ready to talk about these terms. I want you to repeat them after me. Central idea.
Central idea.
Supporting details.
Supporting details.
So I already know that I have two different types of supporting details. The first one can be explicit. Say it after me. Explicit.
Explicit.
Good, I hear the ending. So let's talk about the second one. It's called implicit. Say it with me.
Implicit.
Excellent. And the last one is, the term we talked about would be extraneous.
Extraneous.
Say it one more time.
Extraneous.
Oh, good, I hear the ending. Extraneous. Okay? Now, let's just talk about what good readers do when they look at information. They have to determine. That means that they have to find information. They may have to analyze the text. That means they may have to look at the textual features, the topic, the captions, the information inside. They may have to look at words, break down the words, look at the affixes, meaning the prefixes and the suffixes. Then that person needs to cite, means to mention in support of, but when they cite evidence, the evidence needs to be either implicit or explicit. Good, Hudson. So if I say explicit, it's going to be directly stated. Good. And if it's implicit, not directly stated, but I can do what? Infer. And we know infer means to conclude. But what am I concluding from? Evidence. Okay? Everybody with me? You all are on it. So let's get ready to go through the process of locating the central idea and supporting details. Because remember, our learning target is I can
determine the central idea, main idea of the text by identifying and analyzing.
Excellent. Okay, so let's look at that. You ready? So we talked about the terms. We know we have to do all of these things to get this information here. But there's a process and there's steps that you have to go through. And this is what good readers do. Good readers perform a close read of the text. That means they just simply read through it to get an understanding. Step one. The second thing that they do, they reread in chunks. Which word matches? If I reread in chunks, I am, or portions, what am I doing? analyzing good because I'm going to break it down into portions or chunks. And then what else do good readers do? They pose reflection questions. So you're saying, Ms. Thompson, what questions do I need to ask myself about main idea supporting details? I need to ask myself, what is this section mainly about? I need to also ask myself, how do I know? Well, the most important thing, when I determine my answer, what textual evidence supports my finding? Know that my textual evidence is going to be supporting details, whether it is implicit or explicit. You all are on it. Then the next thing I need to do is analyze the text and features and draw emphasis. So these two go together. As I reread, I'm analyzing, breaking it down into parts. And then I annotate the text to make notes. I put notes in the margins. All of this is for me so that I can get a better understanding of the text. It's okay to question the text. It's okay to write questions to the author. It's okay to box out terms. When I do that, I'm making marginal notes. And the last thing that good readers do, because good readers produce good writers, they make an outline so they can know how to write their objective summary later. Okay? So I want you to watch me. I want you to watch me. The first thing that good readers do is just to analyze everything that you see. So the first thing I need to do is look at the text features. Remember, we talked about that. Recycling the dead. So I already know recycle means to use again. Okay? Then I read the underlining statement here. You can follow along with me on your paper. The decay of dead things is simply nature's way of mining old materials for new uses. Okay, so they're saying it's talking about decaying. Okay, so now I just want to read. Eventually, all living things die, and except in very rare cases, all of those dead things will rot. But that's not the end of it. What rot will wind up becoming a part of something else. This is how nature recycles. Just as death marks the end of an old life, the decay and decomposition that soon follow provide material for new life. Decomposition breaks apart dead bodies, explains Anne Pringle. She's a biologist at Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. When an organism dies, fungi and bacteria get to work breaking it down. Put in another way, they decompose things. It's the mirror image of composing where something is created. Some decomposers live in leaves or hang out in guts of dead animals. These fungi and bacteria act like built-in destroyers. Soon, more decomposers will join them. Soil contains thousands of types of single-cell fungi and bacteria that take apart things. Mushrooms and other multi-cell fungi also can get into the act. So can insects, worms, and other invertebrates. Yes, rotting can be yucky and disgusting. Still, it is vitally important. Decomposition aids farmers, preserves forest health, and even helps make biofuels. This is why so many scientists are interested in decay, including how climate change, That is why so many scientists are interested in decay, including how climate change and pollution may affect it. Welcome to the world of rot. So the first thing we did was perform a close read of the text. The next thing we need to do is do what? Reread in chunks. So I'm going to show you how to reread in chunks and analyze what I'm reading. Okay? So the first thing I want to do is I want to number my paragraphs or lines. So number yours as I number mine. But you're still watching. Now I know that this is the beginning of my reading. So I know that this is similar to the introduction. So in this particular section, I'm going to be looking for the central idea of what the text is all about. I do have some clues so far because I've read the title. And the title states, Recycling the Dead. Okay? But now I need to reread in chunks and analyze it and make notes about what I've read to come up with the central idea. And we know that central idea is what the whole text is about, the main focus of the text. Eventually, all living things die, and except in very rare cases, all of those dead things will rot. So they're saying here that according to the text in line 1, all things will rot. But that's not the end of it. What rots will wind up becoming a part of something else. So here in the text, it states in the first paragraph, the last sentence, what rots will wind up becoming a part of something else. So that's basically, they're saying something about recycling, which makes the reason why they probably use the word recycling in the title. Now, I'm gathering evidence. So as I gather this evidence, it's not explicitly stating in this particular line the word recycle, but I have a clue here that tells me that. So I am inferring that this may be about recycling what rots. The second paragraph states, this is how nature recycles. Just as death marks the end of an old cycle, the decay and decomposition that soon follow provide material for new life. So here, in the text, in the second paragraph, towards the end, it says that decay and decomposition provide material for new life. Okay? Which goes back to why the author's probably using the word recycle again. Then it states here, decomposition breaks apart dead bodies, explains Anne Pringle. Well, who is Anne Pringle? She's a biologist at Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So here she states, decomposition breaks apart dead bodies, and she's a biologist. So this is an expert who's kind of supporting that what rots will become something else, which is a part of the recycling process. And then here, when an organism dies, fungi and bacteria get to work breaking it down. Put it another way, they decompose things. It's the mirror image of composing. Wait, okay, hold on. Because now they're giving me a new word. And I saw the word decomposition here, and I see the word decompose things. So I need to come up with a definition for these two terms because it looks like the author is going to use it a lot. So it says here, it's the mirror image of composing, where something is created. So here, they're saying that compose means to break down. No, that's not what it states. So I have to erase that because that's not what the text says. It says compose means something is created. Okay? So it explicitly states that compose means to create. And then here, it gives a synonym for it. So it says it's a mirror image of composing where something is created. So the mirror image, mirror means backwards. So see here, it's saying the difference. So if compose means to create, decompose means to break down. See, when we read a piece, we have to analyze. And analyze means to break down. I broke down the title. I inferred. I'm breaking down terms so that I can come up with what the central idea is about. And then here, it says, soon more decomposers will join them. Soil contains thousands of types of single-cell fungi and bacteria that take things apart. Mushrooms and other multi-cell fungi also can get into the act. So can insects, worms, and other invertebrates. So here, in these two paragraphs here, this is giving me the process. Okay? Then in the next paragraph, paragraph 6, it says, yes, rotting can be yucky and disgusting. Still, it's vitally important. Okay, wait, now they're saying that it's vitally important. Decomposition, and so if they're saying it's important, I need evidence to prove that it's important. It says decomposition aids farmers, preserves forest health, and even helps make biofuels. That is why so many scientists are interested in decay, including how climate change and pollution may affect it. Welcome to the world of rot. So this gives me an explanation. Still, now I have performed a close read, which means I read it one time. Then I did a reread, right? Okay? And I read in chunks. Notice I did 2 paragraphs or 2 lines at a time. I read it, annotated it. I annotated what? The title, because I kept what? Referring back to it, because I'm now trying to come up with a central idea of what this passage or what this text is about. I analyzed the details. I drew emphasis based on one line and why probably the author used the word recycling. I made notes. And now I need to add this information to my outline. But first I need to come up with what is this text mainly about. Because remember, we talked about that. What is this text? What is this section about? Or what is this text about? How do I know? Well, and I use my textual evidence frames to help me. And I can use these frames when I get ready to cite my evidence. So I'm looking for a central idea. What is this whole text about? I found it. Let me tell you where it's located. I'm now analyzing this particular introduction here. In this section, it just gave me general information. Here and here, it gave me the definition of decompose and compose. But more importantly, it gave me an expert testimony to support. When it gave me the definition, it gave me the process. But according to the text, it states here in the 6th paragraph, the 2nd sentence, still it is vitally important. And if I go back to read the 1st and 2nd one, it says, yes, rotting can be very yucky and disgusting. Still is vitally important. So I know that this whole text is going to be about rotting is important. I have cited evidence. I told you, according to the text, paragraph 6, the 1st and 2nd sentence tells me what the entire text will be about. So when I look at my graphic organizer that is orange in your area, look at your graphic organizer, it's orange. It's going to be in the back of your notes. Okay? We have recycling the dead. This is the title of our article. And we already know that titles of articles we place in quotes. The central idea. Writing is vitally important. Okay? So here we go. It's already written there for you. Okay. Now, everybody with me? Let's get ready. Now let's work together. Okay? So I've shown you how to go through the process and finding the steps. You'll see that when I work, I determined, I look for to find the central idea. I analyzed terms. I cited evidence. Let's talk about the evidence that I cited. Was it explicit or implicit? Explicit because it was directly stated. All right, let's work. I want you to turn to the first heading. Okay, notice here, this is a heading. Why we need right. And before we begin, let's go ahead and number our paragraphs. What do good readers do first? Good. They perform a close read of the text. So you should have 6 paragraphs noted. I'm going to read. I need 2 volunteers. Paris will read 5. Hudson will read 6. But we're all reading together, okay? Ready? Okay. So what I'm going to do is when I pause, the whole class will read, okay? All eyes. Why we need rot. Decomposition isn't just the end of everything. It's also the start. Read with me. Without decay,
life would end without rot. Observes
Newt Nanderhofer. Let me read now. He's an ecologist at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. Decomposition releases the chemicals that are
critical for life.
Good. Let me read. Decomposers mine them from the dead so that these recycled materials can feed
the living.
Let's read together the first sentence.
The most important thing recycled by rot is the element carbon.
This chemical element is the physical basis of all life on Earth. After death, decomposition releases carbon into the
air,
soil,
and water.
Living things capture this liberated carbon to build
new life.
Let's read together.
It's all part of what scientists call the carbon cycle.
The carbon cycle really is about life and
death.
Observed Melanie Mays. She's a geologist and soil scientist at Oak Ridge National Laboratory in
Tennessee.
Pick up.
The carbon cycle starts with plants.
Stop. I want my reader to pick up by himself. So start from the beginning. The carbon cycle.
The carbon cycle starts with plants. In the presence of sunlight, green plants combine carbon dioxide from the air with the water. This process called photosynthesis creates the simple sugar
Glucose.
It's made of nothing more than carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and those carbon materials.
Pick up.
Plants use glucose and other sugars to grow and fuel all of their activities, from breathing and growth to reproduction. When plants die, carbon and other nutrients stay in their fibers. Stems, root, wood, bark, and leaves all contain these fibers.
Okay. So the first thing I did was I performed a close read. So what's the next step that we have to complete?
Reread in chunks.
Reread in chunks. And what do we need to do? Analyze. Break it down. What can we break down?
The titles,
The sub
the subheading,
heading
The subheading in the text.
in the text and also the text itself. Break down the paragraph. So let's get ready to do it together. Everybody with me? So what's the first thing that we need to look at?
the subtitle,
The heading. The heading or subheading. So the subheading states why we need rot. What are your thoughts?
Like, why do we really need rot?
Okay, so why do we really need rot? Is what it's saying. Could that possibly be our central idea? It could possibly be, because then we can do what, Hudson?
we can infer.
We can infer, good, but when we infer, what do we have to rely on? The clues from the text. So now we have to do a reread. Good. We have to do a reread in chunks. So let's do this. Let's read the first and second one, paragraphs. Talk about what we can draw from that to come up with a central idea of that section. All right, let's go. Everyone should be doing this. Decomposition isn't just the end of everything, it's also the start. Without decay, none of us would exist. Is anything important there?
Yes.
Exist. Okay? So that's important. And we know exist would be
Living thing.
living things. Good. I like the fact that you're using those science terms. Life would end without rot, observes Newt Nadelhofer. He's an ecologist at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. Decomposition releases the chemicals that are critical for life. Decomposers mine them from the dead so that these recycled materials can feed living things. What is the author doing here for us?
Giving us information.
He's giving us information, Paris.
Like he giving us information.
But what type of evidence is he giving us? Okay? But he's just giving us experts. Okay? He's giving us information by the expert. The expert states here, life would end without rot. And this is the expert. Okay? Can I go ahead and come up with a central idea? Not yet? You think we need to read a little bit further? Okay, let's read just a little bit further. Let's look at 3. The most important thing recycled by rot is the element carbon. This chemical element is the physical basis of all life on Earth. After death, decomposition releases carbon into the air, soil, and water. Living things capture this liberated carbon to build new life. It's all part of what scientists call carbon cycle. So what are we learning from this particular, or gaining from the 3rd paragraph? It's talking about carbon, okay? Okay, it's talking about the most important thing. So now we're just talking to the text, we're reading to the text to form or formulate a central idea, to make a central idea. The carbon cycle really is about life and death, observes Melanie Mays. She's a geologist and soil scientist at Oak Ridge National Laboratory in Tennessee. So what does the author give us here?
Another expert.
Another expert. How do we know this person's an expert?
Because she's a geologist.
She's a geologist. So that means she has studied geology. Okay? And she says it's about life and death. Okay? The carbon cycle starts with plants. In the presence of sunlight, green plants combine carbon dioxide from the air with water. This process, called photosynthesis, creates the simple sugar glucose. It's made of nothing more than the carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and those starting materials. So what is it telling us in this particular section?
This gave us 3 materials about how glucose.
Okay, it just gives us 3 materials. It just tells us about the carbon cycle, right?
Yes.
And then in the last paragraph, paragraph 6, plants use glucose and other sugars to grow and fuel all of these activities, from breathing and growth to reproduction. When plants die, carbon and other nutrients stay in their fibers. Stems, roots, wood, bark, and all leaves all contain these fibers. What is it doing here?
It's telling you how stems and roots and wood and bark and leaves contain the fibers that they gave us.
Okay, so now we've analyzed and we summarize each section, okay? Now, we still haven't done what we would need to do. What do we need to do? We've annotated, because when you annotate, you mark on it, you draw boxes around it, so we've annotated. Good. But what we have to do first, before we can put anything on our outline,
Make our central idea.
make our central idea. Okay, now, when you make a central idea, I need you to cite evidence. So, think about the textual features here. Excuse me, the textual evidence. In the textual evidence, you need to use one of these frames to show me where you may have found the central idea. You found it? Okay, you know where it's located. Now think about your frame that you're going to use. Which frame are you going to use? Okay, so go ahead, take over. Okay, let's go back. Because remember, we have to start. He helped you out. We have to start with a sentence starter. So which one of these sentence starters are you going to use? According to the text. Loud and clear so I can hear you, okay?
According to the text, without the case
Okay, so let me help you. So when we cite textual evidence, we'll say according to the text, but where in the text is it located?
First
Paragraph 1. So I'm going to help you. Ready? According to the text,
paragraph.
second, or let's say third.
Third sentence, without the character of us being subject.
Good. So we know that none of us would exist without rot or without decay. So that is going to be our what? Our central idea of that particular section. So what do we write here?
Without decay.
Okay? So we know that this section is without decay, we would not exist. What are my next steps?
Supporting details.
I have to find supporting details to help uphold the central idea. And we know to uphold the central idea is why without decay we would not exist. What information listed in the text will support that? Now watch. I always have to begin with some kind and lead me in the text. Who wants to try it? Okay, go ahead, Hudson. And speak loud so I can hear you.
Okay. It says,
Stop 1 second. So which one of these are you going to use first? Remember, we just showed you how.
in the text states,
Paragraph.
paragraph 2,
Okay, paragraph 2.
the second, the third sentence, it says decomposition release the chemicals that are critical for life.
Okay, so we can add that to the text. Okay, so let's add that to the text. Decomposition, and you may already have this done for you. It releases chemicals. Okay? I just want you to follow along this process. Follow along. Okay? What other information supports why we will not exist without decay? What other information supports that? Okay, so remember, what do we have to do though? We have to get textual evidence. Let's go back to what Hudson just stated. Was it supporting evidence he gave? Was it explicit or implicit? Explicit because it was directly stated in paragraph 2. Good. Okay? So let's find some other evidence that supports why we would not exist if we didn't have decay. You want to try, Paris? Remember your frame. Remember the frame. In the text, it states where?
In paragraph 3.
In paragraph 3.
The most important thing is right in the element.
Okay, so I'm going to help him out. Excellent. According to the text, or in the text, paragraph 3, first sentence, the most important thing recycled by rock is the element carbon. So I'm thinking to myself, is that important for us to know? Yeah, because we talked about the chemical. Okay? We talked about chemicals. So we want to say that carbon is the basis for life. Now, I'm looking at this information. Without decay, we would not exist. We said the decomposition releases chemicals, right? So we know that supports, it opposes it, correct?
Yes.
We said here that carbon is the basis for life. That goes with the word exist. So we're making sure that our information, our evidence that align here supports our central idea of this subsection. Was the information that was given to us, was it explicit or implicit? I can't hear you.
Explicit.
How do you know?
Because it's stated.
It was direct.
Directly stated in the text. We didn't have to use clues to come up with an answer. So do we have any other evidence that supports why we would not exist? Okay? I want you to start, but I want Dixon to help. Okay? One example from the text. In paragraph 5. The second sentence, photosynthesis,
Correct the simple sugar
glucose. Okay, so here she said one example in paragraph 5 from the text, and I think that is the third sentence. This process called photosynthesis creates the simple sugar glucose. So what can we write here? You can infer. Okay, what can you infer?
That photosynthesis, that's how plants also get their
Food. Okay, so but what evidence here supports that? Because you're on the right track.
It says in the presence of sunlight, green plants combine carbon dioxide from the air.
And he's on paragraph 5. And we got to cite the information in the text.
Or in the text in paragraph 5, the second sentence it says, in the presence of sunlight, green plants combine carbon dioxide from the air with water.
Okay, so we can infer that they have to have these items. When it states here it produces sugar, and we can assume without sugar
Green plant or tree.
they would not exist. Excellent. So what do we just do?
We just
Implicit.
It's implicit. Excellent. So what's one note that we can write here?
Without photosynthesis, plants would not.
Okay, so without, now notice what we're doing here. We're putting everything in our own words. Without now, let's talk about if this aligns. Does this match? Because we talked about we need direct information that would hold. So now we're going to check to make sure this information is not extraneous, correct? And we talked about extraneous means what?
information that doesn't not fully support the central idea.
Okay, so it doesn't fully support the central idea. So our central idea of this section was, we talked about without decay, we would not. So everything has to refer back to the word.
Exist.
So let's check. Decomposition releases chemicals. Okay, decomposition releases chemicals, but we need to talk about maybe these two are connected, right? So here it says carbon is the basis for life. You know what basis means? We need it. It's needed to survive, correct? So here it's saying that decomposition releases chemicals. And we have to know the chemical that we need would be carbon. Okay? Carbon, we need it to exist. And without the photosynthesis process giving out sugar, plants would survive and everything else we're able to get information from it. That's the reason why we need rock. So we've gone through the process. We perform a close read, right? Okay? We reread in chunks. We posed those questions. We analyzed the text. We broke it down. We drew emphasis from, we inferred here. We annotated the text. We made notes. And we completed our outline. So now it's your turn as a group. Okay? As a group, I want you to go through the same process. Okay? And I want you to be able to figure out what the third section is about. Everybody with me? If you have a partner side by side, you all can rotate reading, but I need to hear everyone reading, but you're going to read at a level so that only your group can hear you. I see one person already ready. Guess what that person did? Number the paragraphs. Okay? Number the paragraphs. I'm going to give you, baby, about a few minutes to go through this process. Okay? Okay. Everybody ready? Okay. So we numbered our paragraphs. I have 1 and 2. Who has 3? Who has 3? 3. Who has 4? 4. Who has 5? 5 and 6. Right. Mm-hmm. Right, ready? Okay. So, what do we do first? What's the first process?
Read, clock, walk.
Good, to perform a close read. So we're ready. I'm reading 1 and 2. Who has 3? Okay. Who has 4? 5 and 6. Okay. The fabric of plants. Think of a leaf like a piece of cloth, says Jeff Blanchard. This biologist works at the University of Massachusetts, or UMass, in Amherst. Cloth is woven with different threads, and each thread is made of fibers spun together. Likewise, the walls of each plant cell contain fibers made of different amounts of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Those fibers are hemicellulose, cellulose, and lignin. Hemicellulose is softest, cellulose is sturdier, lignin is toughest of all.
When a plant dies, microbes and even larger fungi they do so by releasing
Enzymes.
Enzymes are molecules made of different the speed of chemical reactions. Here, different enzymes help snip apart chemical bonds that hold together the fibrous molecules. Snipping those bonds of each including
Glucose. 4. Cellulose.
Cellulose is essential glucose rings that attach to one another that explains its maze. During decomposition, enzymes attack the cellulose and break the bond between the two glucose molecules. The isolation glucose molecule can then be taken up as food as she explains.
along the way it releases it's that same content to use as part of that in the carbon cycle.
Nitrogen, phosphorus, okay, so, all right, so now we need to determine what the main idea is by rereading in chunks, right? Okay, so let's first analyze the headings or subheading here. It says the fabric of plants. What are you thinking when you see that section?
Like the way they
The way they feel. Okay, so we can say feel. What else can we say about the word fabric?
And chalk, break it down and chalk. So,
Like certain textures.
The texture, okay,
Back up a leaf like you used to.
okay. All right. So what I want you to do now is I want you to read 1 and 2. I want you to talk about it. Okay? Then I want you all to do it together. Okay? I'm gonna check on the other groups while you do that. Okay? So go ahead. Okay, good. I like the way that you saying that you have expert is was part of the evidence, correct? Okay, keep going.
And then box. And then underline. Leave like that. Think about it, like it's very sharp.
Next page, likewise, the wall
Third is made of fiber.
of different amounts of carbon, hydrogen, and the box
But you see, and each
Box out what?
thread is made of fiber spun together.
Hemicellulose? Pronounce it for me. Hemicellulose. Okay, good. Okay. Now, what are we looking for now, though? I know you're on the second part. We're rereading in chunks. But what are we looking for? Oh, okay, excellent. Now, your peer just stated we forgot to look at the subheading. So go ahead and let's read the subheading. The fabric of plants. Talk about it.
Oh, and we gotta remind this cloth is woven with different threads. We're underlining the word.
Then we're gonna go to the second paragraph.
Okay, he's saying it means a type of cloth, possibly. Okay.
Look.
Okay. You all read it? Okay. Tell me why you boxed out this name. It's an expert, okay. Biologist, okay. And tell me in this text, in this paragraph, why you said cloth is woven with different thread. Why did you underline that part? So you're taking this statement here and referring it back to fabric? Okay. So you've read enough now to come up with a central idea, have you? Okay, so I want you to write a central idea, a statement for the central idea of that section. What have you all come up with first? Remember here, good readers always read and annotate. So not just numbering the paragraphs. I need to see where you read the heading, the subheading of this particular article, and annotated it. I need to see you annotating the first and second all of the paragraphs, because remember, excellent readers analyze means to break down for parts. Okay, your neighbor has started here, so let's talk about why you boxed out Blanchard.
For the second one, right?
And the information that he's given is probably true, right?
Even larger, okay. Break down these fiber, and then we're gonna unline the fiber.
So box everything else in
No, don't box it, just box it. And then, yeah, we can box the fiber, because it's still.
So the part that you worked with so far, and I know you read at least down to 2 or 3 paragraphs, are you able to come up with a central idea of what this subsection is about?
It's like,
You want to read another one? Okay, go ahead and read the next one.
but in the first and second paragraph, I was telling you the fibers of the,
A little bit of the third one, it says round is made.
Okay, so you heard fibers in the first part, and I heard fibers in the second part. What do you think that section is going to be about?
fiber of the plants. Like
Okay, but remember, we can come up with another word for fiber.
the way it feels.
So what did you guys come up with here? The fibers of the plant?
The walls of each plank contain fibers made up of different amounts of carbon dioxide, hydrogen,
Oh, wow. Wait a minute. Let's stop here. Now we come back to another word, what? And then from the previous section, it said something about carbon. So we know carbon. Right. But here it said it's made up of fibers, right? And one of the fibers that we read about before was, and we talked about how in the previous section it was important for life.
And then if that's also important, and they also talk about it, also the minerals oxygen we use to breathe without oxygen.
But why is the author naming all of those pieces? That's what I want trying to get you to see.
Because they all sum up about the cycle of carbon dioxide.
So I want you to think, Hudson. Think, why did the author choose this particular heading? You're on the right track. At this particular point, you should need to be writing down what the central idea of that section is. On the sheet, on the third section. The third section. Go ahead and write down the central idea. Let's get ready to wrap up. What are some important things that readers do when they read? We talked about it earlier. Let's go with Walter. They reread. Why do they reread? They can get information from the text. Okay, let's get someone else. Yes. What does analyze mean? To break down into books. But what are we breaking down? Okay, what do we break down in the text? Help them out. The main idea, Paris, then Hudson.
We break it down like what is mainly about.
What is main? But what are we looking?
The main for the main.
You're looking for the central idea. But when we look for that central idea, we look at words. We look at pictures. Remember that? We look at the headings or the subheadings, and we look at the title. Okay? All right. Who can explain the process? If I were to take this down right now, who can explain this process without looking at it? What is step 1, Dixon? Reread. Okay? Here, what is step 2 of the process of finding central idea? Read in chunks. Okay? Mars, what is step 3? They said read first, reread. Analyze means I need to break down. What is my next step? You know, annotate the text. What does it mean to annotate the text? Break it down. Make marginal notes. Okay? And what's the last thing? Do your outline based on the evidence that you found. Okay? All right. Now tomorrow, or the next time we meet, we're going to finish the process of finding the central idea and supporting details. Okay? All right.